Well, some parents watching their children go off to school can be anxious about their personal, social and educational development. And studies show that 1 in 5 children have a developmental vulnerability when they start school. And recognising this at an early stage is critical to providing effective intervention.
That's right. Now, current assessments tend to focus on what is lacking in the child and tailoring programs to address those particular challenges. But a new study aims to shift the focus onto the child's strengths instead. Well, Professor Adam Guastella is one of the experts leading that study. He's also a clinical psychologist with the Michael Crouch Chair in Child and Youth Mental Health from the University of Sydney. Thank you so much for coming in and chatting with us today.
Thank you, Fazia. Glad to be here.
Now, explain to us this purpose of this study. How would the focus on a child's strength in assessment and the intervention programs, how does that differ from current programs right now?
Well, I mean, the first thing is to differentiate it from a diagnosis. So there's a really clear and set criteria that's needed to establish a diagnosis, but that diagnosis generally doesn't cover all that's needed to know about a child to inform on what's important for their development, what's important for interventions. And what we want to make sure is that we're getting the right assessments and the right interventions for the right children to make the biggest difference. And so what we need to be able to do that is to understand both their weaknesses and areas of concern, as well as things that are their strengths and things we might be able to capitalise on to really help them develop in the way that gives them the best outcomes.
Well, it's a very positive outlook too. It's a very positive approach to these intervention programs. You identified something like 61 strengths. What are just some of the common ones? Yeah,
so the most common ones were things like, surprisingly enough, parents might come in and say, hey, my child has concerns in peer interactions and social development. But one of the most common ones was about their social skills in terms of showing caring and honest interactions and loyal interactions with peers and being really good family members and caring for siblings. Other ones were about cognitive skills. So one of the common ones was about being really good at categorising and sorting information out in unique and helpful ways. Character traits like being determined and showing lots of perseverance despite having lots of maybe difficulties with certain tasks. Those sorts of things, and they're things that are really, really important for development.
It's like their own superpower, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is about recognising that kids have enormous strengths and that we need to make sure that we're feeding that back to them as well.
I do wonder, though, if there is a focus or the shift towards focusing on their strengths, you know, some kids then may start to mask their weaknesses. Is that right? I mean, is there a concern that that might happen?
We're not talking about sort of dismissing the concerns and not addressing the concerns. We're talking about presenting a whole picture for the child. And so we know, for example, that focusing on strengths along with the concerns has multiple benefits. The first major benefit is really about providing feedback to the child to make sure that when we address goals for the child and family, that we're building on what they want and we're building on functioning outcomes that are important to the family. So a strengths-based approach with the concerns can help us to do that more effectively. The second thing is, if we are going to do interventions, we can combine the aspects of the interventions with their strengths to make those interventions more effective. So it's not either or in that example. And the final thing is, we know when we focus too much on the negatives and all the concerns that we might have about a child, then that can affect systems. So it can affect things like how families respond to children, how schools respond to children. So providing that, you know, positive strengths-based lens can really help to increase, I guess, positive interactions in those environments.
Could you give me an example of how focusing on the strengths might change treatment or intervention?
Yeah, so if we know, for example, that a child is showing strengths in perseverance and determination, we might be able to increase the intensity of the task and to be able to demonstrate whether certain interventions also increase that tendency for perseverance and determination. If we're thinking about their kind skills, then we might be looking at how we can use that kindness and that loyalty to build friendships and to build the friendships that they want. That is loyalty and kindness in return.
And expand their network that way.
Absolutely.
Does this you're looking at this sort of a program for kids. Does this work for adults as well who are diagnosed later in life?
I mean, this works for everyone. I mean, we need to, whenever you criticise yourselves too much and focus on the concerns, you're not addressing some of the strengths and some of the things that you do really well. So in adults, we know, for example, in the workplace, when we focus on strengths, that we can focus on jobs and particularly roles and networks that people might be really, really good at. And we can go from people, maybe struggling in a role because the focus has been too much on the negative to really succeeding and doing really well. So this is something that affects people across the lifespan.
It is a fascinating topic and fascinating research that you're doing, Adam. Thank you so much for coming in and chatting with us. Adam Guastella.
Thank you.